Just waiting.
Live. And we are live. For everyone who's listening, hello, welcome, congratulations for being accepted into Harvard. My name is Michael Richard. I'm a sophomore here at Harvard. I hail from Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Fitchburg is about an hour northwest of here, but Harvard's still far enough away for me to say that I'm going away to college. I'm studying economics and government, and I'm going to be kind of moderating our Google Hangout today. We're joined with four other awesome Harvard undergraduates, and we kind of really cover the spectrum in terms of experiences, different clubs and activities we're involved with, things that we studied. So we're here to really be a resource to you. We understand that it's one thing to get in, but you really want to know what it's like here, and that's why we're here. So I'm going to go around and begin to introduce everybody. They're going to kind of tell you about themselves. And then we're going to start jumping into questions. So let's start with Alice.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a freshman from Philadelphia, PA, and I live in Weld. It's one of the freshman dorms. I'm probably going to study government, focusing on international relations. My primary activities on campus involve writing and international relations. So I write for the Harvard International Review, the Journal for Public Interest, and I also am interning at the UN Association of Greater Boston. I'm also working on an international development project in Guatemala. That's what I do. Looking forward to getting your questions.
Awesome. And next we have Andrew.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening in with us tonight. My name is Andrew Pardue. I'm a junior from Nashville, North Carolina, which is not the same as Nashville, Tennessee. It's a little bit smaller. I am studying government and economics here at Harvard, so love your questions about any of that. Very involved in the Institute of Politics here, public service internships, as well as Harvard College Faith in Action, one of our Christian fellowships, and I write a political opinion column for the Crimson. So, yeah, glad to be here.
Great. Now we have Claire.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Claire. I'm also a freshman here at Harvard like Alice. Super excited that you guys are here. Hopefully you'll be able to deal with some of the most pressing concerns, and you should really ask us questions about anything at all because we're really eager to answer them. In terms of where I'm from Toronto, Canada, so shout out to any Canadians in the audience, and I'll probably be studying economics here. As for extracurriculars, I'm involved in the debate club, so debaters, you go, and also some professional business programs like the Harvard Consulting Group, which is super cool, along with Women in Business. So yeah.
Awesome. And last but not least, we have Diana Speth.
Hi, class of 2019. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Diana Speth, and I am a junior originally from Brooklyn, New York, currently living in Lowell House and studying English. So if anyone has any interest in the humanities, let me know, and I'd love to answer your questions. On campus, I work for the undergraduate minority recruitment program, so I might have spoken to some of you. And besides that, I work with a lot of the Latino and Latina culture organizations on campus. In addition, I also am part of Undergraduate Women in Business, so let me know if you have any questions about that. We're just so happy to answer your questions tonight.
Awesome. So before we really roll into your questions, which feel free to start posting as soon as possible, we all just kind of briefly wanted to talk about academics. I think it's something that a lot of students really have a question about, and it's hard to really know what it's all about without having a student's perspective. So your course load is kind of split into three parts. The first being your concentration or your major. So we have 48 different concentrations here at Harvard, from economics to folklore and mythology to biology to anything you can really think of. And you'll take 12 to 16 of those classes. And they can be fulfilled in a variety of ways. You can do them over the summer, you can do it term time, or oftentimes you can do them abroad. But a lot of people boast that it's one of the best aspects here at Harvard. Part of the reason is because we boast very small class sizes. Others is that our professors are incredibly successful and talented, some of them being Nobel laureates, former politicians, you name it. So that's kind of half of your your academic agenda, so to speak. The next quarter is kind of your electives. So you can kind of put these credits wherever you see fit. Let's say that there's an art class that you really wanted to take that wasn't really offered in high school, you can take that. If you want to pursue a language citation, you can do that as well. If you want to get a secondary, which is kind of our terminology for a minor, you can do that as well. Secondaries are typically 5 to 7 classes, and most Harvard graduates walk away with a concentration in a secondary. But what is great about kind of that electives quarter of your academic kind of portfolio or profile is that it allows you to either establish depth or breadth or even both in kind of your academic experience. And the last quarter, which I think is really fantastic, is the general education requirements. So there are 8. And they really span the spectrum of kind of academic thought and really scholarly interest. But they're not just 8 single classes that everyone takes and it's the same classes. Harvard actually offers over 5,000 different courses, and you can really take whatever you want. And they try to tailor the gen eds to something that where your strengths are and where your interests are. So, for example, I had a gen ed that satisfied culture and belief, and it was an African American history and music class. So it looked at African American culture from World War II to now through the lens of music. Other culture and belief classes include, ones on, literature following, the Great Depression, or, look at different cultures in different continents. But, contrary to popular belief, you don't have to be a genius to go to Harvard. You can keep telling your friends that, but they don't expect you to come in and be a master at, all the different subjects. They just want you to have a passion and to kind of want to explore something different. So to kind of end my very long-winded explanation on academics, I'm actually going to go around the horn and ask people what their favorite class has been and why. So let's start with Andrew.
Sure. So I second pretty much everything that Michael said, especially the Gen Ed program. I was a little worried coming in because, for one, I hate math. I was very determined not to take another mathematics course in college. I ended up doing statistics or economics for that credit. So it's very easy to satisfy those no matter where your interests lie. My favorite course that I've taken at Harvard was actually last semester. It was in the government department, a government seminar called Presidents, Governors, and Mayors, Chief Executive Power and Comparative Perspective. It was 7 students with 1 professor. We met on Wednesday nights. He would always bring us dinner because it was during the dinner hour, a 2-hour course. And it was so cool because not only are you working with a top-notch professor who is the resident tutor, or resident dean rather, in one of our houses here at Harvard, but he would bring in special guests too to teach us. So the week that we talked about mayors, we had the former mayor of Miami, Manuel Diaz, come in to talk about governing a large city in America. On the week that we talked about governors, we had former Governor Christine Gregoire of Washington State come in and teach class. Very cool lady, and a really entertaining class the week that she led it. And then the week that we did presidents, we didn't have a president of the United States come in because that would have been crazy, not during class. But then a couple of days later, I was in a different class. I got a text message from my professor because we were a small enough class. He had all of our numbers. And he said, come to Memorial Church right now. There's a VIP visitor that you have to meet. So I asked for an excuse to leave the class, and it was President Jimmy Carter. He was doing a book signing here at Harvard. My professor introduced himself, said, I've got 7 kids that are in a class right now about chief executive power. We're right now talking about presidents. Could you speak to them for half an hour? And he was very happy to do that. So yeah, really incredible opportunities like that to meet a former president, to talk with them about their job. And that's just one of the many really interesting experiences that I've had in a class year. Throw it on to someone else now.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I am going to that class. But yeah, let's, Diana Smith, why don't you tell us about a class?
I think that my favorite class that I've taken also has to be last semester. I am in the honors track for English, which means that I'm going to be writing a senior thesis next year. And so last semester I took my junior tutorial, which was on the British literature of World War I, just in time for the 100th anniversary of its beginning. And it was a really amazing class. It was only 2 of us and our teacher, so we definitely got an in-depth look at every text that we had on the syllabus. We read really amazing books from Parade's End by Ford Madox Ford to H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. We watched War Horse and all these amazing movies that had to tie in with World War I. And at the end, we even got to watch Downton Abbey, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
It was also a very rewarding experience because I wrote my junior thesis last semester in preparation for my senior thesis. And my junior thesis was actually on Sherlock Holmes and how Sherlock Holmes related to World War I. And as a huge fan of the BBC Sherlock, it was definitely a very rewarding experience to read Conan Doyle's works over a prolonged period of time, and then even writing the 30-page paper at the end was sort of fun. So that was definitely the best class I've taken so far.
That's awesome. Now we're going to go over to one of our freshmen, Claire.
Okay, awesome. So I'm not sure I can live up to your stories, guys. But last semester, I too took a very cool course. It's an introduction to the humanities, so Humanities 10A. It got revamped this year, and it's quite fascinating because it's taught by 5 professors through comparative lit, English, philosophy, the classics. And they essentially all lecture, but in section, instead of having it being led by a teaching fellow, TF, which is our equivalent for TA, teacher's assistant, we had the professor himself. So it was the professor with 15 students. And my professor's name was Professor Stephen Greenblatt, and I went in blindly just thinking he was a really intelligent man who lectured really well. And it turns out that he's a little bit more than that, because in the course we read 12 books. So we read one novel or work of philosophy even every single week. We started off with the Odyssey, made it all the way up to Ulysses, and I think we were somewhere at the Inferno when I found out that my professor, in fact, had won a Pulitzer Award and he'd been on the Colbert Report. And this was so funny because I went up and I searched it, and he's like a Shakespeare scholar. He's very well versed in everything to do with Shakespeare. And apparently during the '08 election, Colbert had invited him to compare the candidates to the actual characters whom Shakespeare had written about. So if you look up the clip, I'm sure you can find it. Stephen Colbert, Professor. Oh my God! Wait, is this Stephen Colbert, guys, or is it something else?
No, I think you're right.
You're right.
Yeah, it's Stephen
Okay,
Colbert.
2 Stephens. Okay, yeah. Professor Stephen Greenblatt on Stephen Colbert's show. And it was very, very funny because at the end of the class, when we'd all really bonded and had a really great time, our professor actually talked to us about being on the show. And would you know, it turns out Colbert makes you write the funny things you think you'll say or the funny tidbits, and then you give it to his producers, and then he uses it against you during the interview. So that's why a lot of people are left stunned, because it's like, hey, that's my joke. But my professor was very intelligent. Someone had warned him, so he kept some stuff in his arsenal and was able to pull it out. So I encourage you all to go look into that.
That's awesome. And finally, we'll follow up with Alice, and then actually with a few questions. So.
Yeah, sounds good. So my favorite class is also from last semester. I took a freshman seminar, and I like to just speak a little bit more about the freshman seminar program, which is this fantastic, absolutely wonderful program in which freshmen get to take seminars that are 15 people or less with professors who are very renowned experts in their fields. And I took mine with a professor who was from the Harvard Law School, and the topic was the history of the U.S. Supreme Court. And I'm very interested in law and then government, so it was great to get to take a very intimate class with someone who had 40 years experience clerking for the Supreme Court, doing a variety of very interesting things in law, in con law. And so we talked about cases going from Marbury versus Madison to Citizens United versus FEC, and just being in an environment where you can just have a conversation with your professor rather than being far away from them and just having them lectured at you, which is really great. And one of my most, memorable experiences was actually happened before freshman year started. So I emailed him before freshman year started to ask about the freshman seminar because I was very interested in the topic. And I didn't think that I would get a response because, everyone's very busy. And I actually got a response within the hour that I emailed him, and he was very enthusiastic in his response. He wanted to talk to me in person, and it just gave me a very good like peek into what life at Harvard is like, where all the professors are always very willing to help you, even if they're very occupied with their own schedules. They will take time out of their busy lives and talk to you and try to answer any questions you have. So that was a very great start to my freshman year experience. And I really enjoyed the freshman summer program. They have topics ranging from astronomy, engineering, the sciences, physics, to history, the arts. So it's a very wonderful program, and I encourage all of you to participate in it if you decide to come here, which you should.
Yeah, absolutely. I swear by the freshman seminar program. I almost want it to be a rite of passage. So those of you who are planning on coming to Harvard, hopefully that's all of you, definitely take a freshman seminar. They're offered both in the fall as well as the spring. So our first, we actually have 2 questions, and both of them are great. So the first one is, can you explain Shopping Week? Absolutely. So I will do a brief lead-in. Shopping Week is the very first week of classes every semester. And what happens is you are free to kind of go to whatever class you want. And that includes classes at the graduate schools, which, a quick note, you can take classes at any of the graduate schools, I believe with the exception of the business school, for free, and it's welcomed and encouraged. So just know that you have that option, and that starts day 1. So if there's a class you want to take at the Kennedy School, a class you want to take at the law school, don't wait, just sign up. But anyways, back to the previous question. The way Shopping Week works is professors understand that there are 5,000 courses that are offered, and many of them are just as awesome as theirs. So you're allowed to drop into a class for 5 minutes, maybe stay the whole hour, pick up the syllabus, kind of get a sense of what it's like. Within the first 2 days of class, there aren't too many assignments really assigned. Maybe they'll have some preliminary readings, but it's basically your way of shopping or taste testing each class. And each intro lecture, again, just gives a very big overview of, what is the course going to be graded like, what are the activities outside of class, what can you expect, things like that. How often will it meet? And everyone loves Shopping Week, and so let's ask some people about what their past shopping weeks were like. So, Claire, have you shopped many classes? What's the experience been like?
Well, you'll find that when you start off in freshman year, there are a lot of really important basic level prerequisite courses that you have to take. And as someone who is pretty focused on going into economics, I knew that I had to take an intro math course and the intro ec course, which is, I believe, second now in terms of the most popular course at school. I think Intro CS, Computer Science, has overtaken us, but I think we will catch up one day. Have no fear at Concentrators. But so I shopped those 2, and I knew that I would end up taking them. And I believe I went to 3 or 4 other cool, more niche courses that I thought would be more for an interest, and Humanities 10A was one of them, and I really don't regret ending up in that course, which is really, really cool, right? But then I also had friends who shopped 8 or 9 courses, and props to them. I have no idea how they did it. They were in class from the start of the day till the end, but I think they ended up making some really cool and informed decisions about which courses they wanted to take.
Awesome. And Diana Speth, you are a junior now. You've been through quite a few shopping weeks. What are some big takeaways that you think are important that incoming Harvard students need to know?
Definitely, when it comes to shopping week, have a plan. I know that many people come into the semester not really knowing what they want to take, and as Claire is saying, it's definitely better to have these very informed decisions. At the same time, when it comes to shopping week, and pretty much to Harvard in general, don't be afraid to be flexible. Sometimes you hear from a friend that a really great class is happening and you happen to have a spot for it. Do not be opposed to breaking the perfectly rigid schedule that you had set in mind just because you hadn't planned to take this class, because it might be the best class you've ever taken. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And also, of course, do your requirements, but always make sure that you have time for electives. And the good thing about Harvard is that because there aren't many general education requirements, because concentration requirements are only about half of the classes that you will take here, you do have a lot of leeway to take classes that you might not consider. My freshman year, for example, I took German. I had no idea that I was going to come in to take German, but I took it for an entire year, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, what's nice is a lot of times when you're satisfying your concentrations, most of those classes have kind of a satisfaction of a gen ed. So you are really able to kill two birds with one stone. So the next question we have is, can you explain housing? Like, how were the dorms set up, including suite life and bathroom situation? So I'm going to lead in with some prelim information like I did prior, and then we'll jump into some anecdotes. So the way housing works as a freshman is you fill out a housing survey, which I almost argue is more extensive than the Common App, but it's a lot of fun. But they'll ask you a series of questions like, what kind of music do you like to listen to? What kind of study are you? What's your idea of a good time on a weekend? What's kind of your sleep schedule? Do you prefer to be in the room, outside of the room? They really want to get to know what you are like as a person and what you're like to live with. And then from that information, the freshman class, each incoming freshman class has 4 residential deans, and they're responsible for overseeing a quarter of the class, and they actually hand pair you to your roommates. It's not done electronically, it's done by a person. So you'll find that your housing announcements probably won't come until the end of July or early August. That's not because something's going funky on your new Harvard email. That's because our residential deans are really putting a lot of thought and consideration into your roommate. And that also applies to if you ask for roommates or not. You can have a single all the way up to 5 roommates. So I think housing is done quite wonderfully. That's freshman housing, and then we'll answer upperclassmen housing in a minute. But Alice, she lives in
so I would love
freshman dorm. Tell them a little bit about Weld's, what Weld's all about.
Yeah, so I love talking about my dorm. It is one of my favorite topics. I think people get tired of me bragging about my dorm and how much I love it. So before coming here, dorming and rooming with other people was one of my biggest, concerns, because I had never had a roommate before. I grew up as the only child, so I was just kind of concerned about that. And when I got my rooming assignments, I was slightly surprised because I asked for 1 to 2 roommates, and I ended up getting 4. But it turned out wonderfully. My roommates have become some of my best friends. They're the people that I go to for advice when I'm, feeling worried and sad. They're just always there for me, and it's just so great. You come into this big Harvard community, but at the same time, you're put into this much smaller dorm community, and then within this dorm, there are entryways. So you have your entryway mates, and then within this entryway, you have your suite. And I know a lot of my friends share my experience. They become really close with their roommates, and it's only been 1 semester, but it feels like we've known each other for forever. And Weld is wonderful because it has a lot of really cool features. So in our dorm, we have this elevator that actually replaced JFK's suite. So JFK lived in Weld on the 1st floor, but so to install the elevator, they had to kind of remove his suite and then replace it with the elevator. So it's a cool story I like to tell people. And we also have a beautiful solarium that's on the very top floor, so you can get to see all the lights around Cambridge and maybe even Boston by just going up there at night and just enjoy the view and just chat with your friends, watch a movie. So that's another cool feature of Weld. Besides that, I think just I know that's sometimes a source of concern and anxiety just to be meeting with these people and then suddenly rooming with them. But I think I agree with what Michael said about they really put a lot of time into finding the right roommates for you. And I really do believe that having this rooming system really makes you feel at home a lot earlier than otherwise. So I really, really love this freshman dorming system.
Awesome. So if you've not been to Harvard yet, Harvard Yard, which is right outside of our T-stop, is actually where all the freshmen live. There are 17 dorms. I believe 14 are within the yard and 3 are just outside of it. And so what's great about being a freshman is you have prime real estate. Close to all the classrooms, all the restaurants, all of the transportation, you have everything literally at your doorstep. But eventually, you have to move out of the yard into an upperclassman house, and it's really coincidental, but Alice was in my freshman dorm, Andrew is in my upperclassman house. So Andrew, tell us about upperclassman house life, and tell us about Housing Day.
Certainly. Well, I came in, as a freshman, lived in the yard with everybody else. I was actually in Conan O'Brien's freshman dorm room. So we didn't have Kennedy, but we had Conan, which is just as cool. And I really enjoyed it, really liked my roommates. I didn't know anyone else coming from a small southern town, so it was entirely randomized. And my 3 roommates and I couldn't have been more different from each other on paper. But it worked really well together, so I second that the FDO does a great job of placing people. It worked so well, actually, that the 8 guys that lived on the top floor of Holworthy my freshman year are still living together now, and I'm surprised none of them have walked in on me because I'm still living with them. So how that works is that you live with each other for 1 semester, and then you come back in the spring of freshman year, and within the first month or so back on campus, you have to create what we call a blocking group, which is you and up to 7 of your closest friends. They don't have to be the people you're currently living with, although hopefully you got along with them. They can be people from a club or a sport or another activity that you do, and they need to be people that you will want to live with for the next 3 years until you graduate. I was happy with my freshman roommates, so that's what I did. And you put your names into the housing lottery. And this is a completely randomized electronic lottery that places you in your house for the rest of the time that you live here. Now, most of you have probably read the Harry Potter books or seen the Harry Potter movies. It's like Hogwarts, but we improve on it because we have 12 houses instead of only 4. Each house has their own distinct mascot, colors, banners, particular community, different parties and events that they hold every year. So each has a very distinct flavor, I'd say. My roommates and I entered our names in the lottery, and then it's a couple of weeks later until Housing Day. And Housing Day is 2 days before spring break every year, second week in March normally. I think this year it's March 12th. And it is by far the most exciting day at Harvard, even more so than Harvard-Yale, which is our big football game. Because basically as a freshman, you stay up all night, and you're talking about your future. You make your shopping list of what your favorite houses are, and you rank them, which that can actually jinx you because I know people have gotten in their 12th place choice far too often. I ended up in my 4th place choice on my list, Mather. I was very happy because Mather guarantees single bedrooms until you graduate. So I'm in a suite with all these other guys. We share a bathroom and we share a common room, but everybody has their own bedroom. So if I have a lot of work to do, or if I'm trying to Skype and do a Google Hangout like this, I can retreat inside my bedroom where I won't be bothered. But if I want to have social interaction and talk to my friends and study together, then I can do that in the common room. So I like the setup that we have here. Mather, one of the drawbacks is that it's really far from the yard. Some of our other ones are closer. I mean, it's just the luck of the draw. And so it's about 10 minutes for me to walk to class, which, isn't bad, and that's one of the furthest houses. Our food is great. Every house has their own dining hall, their own gym, their own library facility. It's about 300 to 400 students that are housed in every house. And, they're a great community. So Mather, one of our premier events every year is the Mather Lather, which is a big foam party that we do normally in April, I think, or right around spring break when it gets warmer, because people come in their bathing suits and we fill up our dining hall. We remove all of our tables and our chairs and things like that. We fill it up with foam. And it's actually been written up in the New York Times, one of the few college parties that has received an article in the New York Times, which is quite the distinction, I think. And it's a lot of fun. I've loved living here. I suppose I didn't tell what actually happens on Housing Day. Let me go back. So you stay up all night with your friends. You're excited. You make those lists. You're waiting. And then around 8 o'clock in the morning on Housing Day, all of the upperclassmen come into Harvard Yard. And it's a huge crowd of people. They're dressed in costumes. They've got banners. They're singing. They're chanting. And all the freshmen are kind of clustered around our windows waiting. I still enjoy watching my video that I took on my Housing Day morning from the window. And they receive the letters with your housing assignments in them at around 8 o'clock, and then they disperse and they take them to the freshmen. So it's so nerve-wracking when you're sitting there and you're saying, oh, out the window, Adam's house, come here, I want to be in Adams, or Cabot, stay away, oh gosh, I don't like Cabot. And, you're doing things like that, and they'll come inside your entryway and you're worried, you're like, are they coming to my room, are they coming to someone else's room? And then they'll stop on the floor below you and you have a heart attack. And you're not sure whose door they're coming to. It's a lot of fun. Some people, most people are happy. Some people are less than happy when they receive their assignment. Those are fun videos to watch too. In general, and then so you receive your housing assignment, you react with everyone there, and then everyone goes to Annenberg, which is the freshman dining hall, and you get your first house T-shirts. You know, you all eat breakfast together as a freshman class again, and pretty much the whole school is in there. I feel it's just very full, very energetic, very happy, and then you get to go on spring break kind of on a high that day. So housing day is something that I feel really sets us apart from most other schools. I think it's a great institution, a lot of fun to participate in, even as an upperclassman. So last year I delivered letters. I was on the other side of the transaction, and thank God no one cried receiving another letter. Everyone was very, very happy. I think it must be the single bedrooms that sell us. So yeah, that's my long-winded diatribe on housing here at Harvard.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I mean, housing day is basically like Christmas Eve for everyone here at campus. The only time you can get a bunch of 20-year-olds up at 8 in the morning early. But we're all very excited. And what's great is a lot of the professors know how important it is to us, so they'll on purpose move midterms to different days. So, yeah, we're going to move on to the next question. So someone asked, how much sleep do you get on average? And I think that was another question. Someone asked, how, given busy schedules and lots of classes, how do you kind of manage all of it? So I'll be honest, I usually get between 7-8 hours of sleep. I don't know if that's a lot or a little, but I find it's pretty easy to manage classes here. We have, with our course listings, we actually have student testimonials as to how much work the course had or little. It's very easy to find a way to balance your schedules. Gen Eds are great ways to establish kind of an equilibrium. So a lot of people do 1 or 2 Gen Eds, maybe a concentration course, and then maybe a secondary course. And a lot of people report that it's very manageable. To you freshmen out there are a few core classes that there's one core class you have to take. It's called XPOS 20. It's a writing kind of seminar. Every student, it's the only class that everyone at Harvard has to take, but it allows you to really synthesize and research and write to a college level. That typically has a decent amount of work. The other big work classes freshman year are Government 20, Economics 10, and Computer Science 50. All of them on their own are very manageable, and they're wonderful courses. Everyone has very positive reviews, and it's a great way to get kind of exposed to government, computer science, and economics. But those are all pretty work intensive. So kind of advice early on is, I don't advise taking XPOS, Ec10, Government 20, and CS 50. And you can definitely take those classes spread out throughout the year. Don't think that there's a big rush that you have to take them all at once. Really talk to other students. We're very friendly here. We're going to give you the good advice because we know what it was like to kind of go through it, albeit some of us a little bit blindly. So I would advise that, hopefully when you decide to come, if you haven't already, spend some time on what's called the Key Guide. We can send out a link when it comes appropriate for that. And just start investigating classes and start reading those reviews, and you can get a real sense of, what you should be taking and how to have a really healthy and happy schedule. So I'm going to ask Alice. Alice is involved in a lot of student publications, a lot of international relations stuff, super busy schedule. How do you do it all without, going nuts?
So I'll just say one thing. I definitely get more sleep than I did in high school because you have a lot of control over your schedule in college, whereas in high school you definitely have to be in school by this time, and then you have 7 or 6 classes and no breaks in between, and then you go home. But here, if you know that you are not a morning person, you can schedule your classes later, starting at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. It really depends on what kind of learner and what your daily schedule, what you want your daily schedule to be like. And how I balance between extracurriculars and classes is to just really take time for myself to just reflect upon what I'm doing and how I want my life to be. So recently I joined this Reflect on Your Life session that the freshman dean's office offers, which is wonderful. So I'm in the session with 5 other people, and also 1 professor, and we just sit together and we talk about these questions that are on our. Hello?
Sorry, I froze for a second. Please continue. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. So we just talk about the questions that we as freshmen have on our mind, like what path should we take, how do we prepare for life after Harvard, and all these things that are on our mind, we just address them and just really talk about what we're concerned about and take an hour to just not do anything, to just talk and sit back and just have time to ourselves. I think that's really important. In the midst of all the hectic, everyday commotion, I think just having time to yourself and having time to just not do anything, to just relax and think is really how I keep myself moving with all the activities I have. And I think another thing that really helps is to join what you're truly passionate about. When you are doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like that much work because you care about it. I know on campus there is, any college campus, there is pressure to join groups because everyone else is doing it, or you think it's going to have long-term benefits. But if you're not really that excited about it, then it's going to end up feeling like a burden in addition to your classes. But if you're doing things that you would do for fun, that you gain a lot of joy and energy from, and rather than taking energy away from you, I think that's really important as well.
That's an awesome answer. And just as a brief anecdote, so I had the real pleasure to speak to a former director of McKinsey who was, McKinsey is a very high-powered consulting firm. They're kind of on the idea of a Goldman Sachs type of a firm, and he used to lead recruiting before he became a director. And I asked him, what is something that employers often look for when they look into someone's application? And he said, what's really important to us, other than leadership and, sound academics, is actually a lot of times we like to see a narrative. We like to see you take sometimes courses, but often extracurricular activities that kind of speak to who you are, your values, and what you would like to do working with us going forward. So we really, really advise you, and it's going to be fun and it's going to be advantageous in terms of looking for internships and jobs, to take the things that you really want to. I'm not saying everything has to be government, not everything has to be, writing and publications, but if there are things that you're doing in high school that you're not really a fan of, you don't have to do them. Come here, we have 800 plus clubs, find the things that you love to do, and just do them. So great question. The most upvoted question right now we have is, do classes fill up to maximum capacity fast? Is the scheduling process first come, first serve? I would say for the most part it isn't. Most classes are pretty flexible. Some are in fact lottery. And what's interesting about lottery is, so you can, lottery to take the course over and over again. Chances are, if the class is so popular, it's being lotteried, it's being offered almost every semester. But for the most part, classes aren't. But I'm actually going to turn this question to Diana's Beth, because she's got 1 more year of experience, and I've personally not had to lottery for a class. So can you talk about maybe, what it is like to have classes fill up or having the lottery?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of classes, as you were saying, are not lotteried. Many classes, in fact, are fairly small, especially on very in-depth topics, and so you won't find a necessity to lottery for these classes. That being said, there are certain classes that, because they are offered once every 2 years, for example, are lotteried. There's a very popular class in folklore and mythology, fantasy and on fairy tales and fantasy literature. They read Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Peter Pan and a lot of really great fantasy literature. But because everyone wants to read Harry Potter for class, because who wouldn't, it fills up very, very quickly. And so, unfortunately, some people are not going to be able to take it. The good thing is, the older you get, the more preference you get. So if next year I want to lottery for that class, I get preference because I will at that point be a senior. If I really wanted to get into a government seminar and I am a government concentrator, which means I study government, I would get first choice for that seminar. And a lot of times, professors really want to see how this fits into your greater overall plans. So many classes have lotteries, have applications that are really short. Just write a paragraph about like why this class would help you, how this class fits into your grand scheme of life, how this fits into what you want to study. Is it something that you want to write your senior thesis on? And so if you're really interested in a class, I've known friends who have written to the professors of classes that they haven't gotten into the lottery for, and the professors have let them into the class because my friends have been so passionate about, I really want to take this class because I really want to study Latin American literature in the 20th century. And so the professors are really flexible. Of course, there are some opportunities that you just won't have to take classes that you might have wanted to take, but that's why you always think, there's always next year. So.
Awesome. Okay, I'm really excited about this question. Someone said, I visited Harvard a few times and was debating coming to Visitas. Do you guys recommend coming to that weekend? And if you had similar experiences, what were your favorite parts about visiting weekends your freshman year? Please come to Visitas. If you've been accepted, if you're considering, Visitas is an amazing weekend. We do a lot of programming. Even if, let's say, for example, let's say there's another university that you're really interested in, you can kind of come into Visitas in the middle of it, in the beginning, leave early. We suggest you stay the whole weekend. I unfortunately didn't get to have a Visitas. When it was supposed to be my year, that was when the Boston bombings were happening, so they had to cancel programming. But that year we actually had a record high, a record yield saying that they wanted to come, even though they were coming into Harvard sight unseen, and everyone really swears by their decision. So because I can't really speak to what is involved in Visitas, I'm actually going to ask Claire because she just had Visitas recently. So Claire, what's it like?
Visitas, guys, is absolutely incredible. I think there's something about being on campus, seeing the red brick buildings, and really getting a feel if you can really envision yourself at Harvard. And one thing I would say is don't take that feel from the weather, because sometimes it's not so sunny out and you're like, oh my God, I was at another school which was super warm the other day. And that's a real concern. But what I would say is engaging with the people is definitely the best part about Visitas. And it's actually kind of funny, right? Because everyone there is just as nervous as you are, because this is probably your first time at Harvard, meeting other students in your class. You're apprehensive. You want people to like you. You're not sure how that's going to work out. But everybody there really feels the same way. And you'll find that as you go around and you meet the upperclassmen, for example, for me, the one memory that really stands out is going to the extracurriculars fair and seeing all the clubs take over the SOCH, which is the Student Activity Center, and just seeing them all holler at you as you go by, saying, come join this, come join that. There's a feeling of community there. And it's really amazing because I literally got there, didn't know anybody. I was even there a day late because I was helping organize a debate tournament at my high school, and I had no one to walk with. So we're all heading towards the SOCH. There's one guy in front of me. I just go up to him and I'm like, hey, are you going to the fair? And he's like, yeah. And right now we're super good friends, and it all just started from that one awkward conversation. We went around the building together. You get to really experience a feeling of belonging that I think is really real about being at Harvard. You get to hear the professors give really short lectures about topics that are absolutely fascinating. And you get to live in the dorms, which is also super cool, and see how you would envision yourself in the Harvard community. And I mean, I know I speak for HCC, which is me, Alice, and Andrew, but I'm sure for everybody here, when we say we're really, really excited about organizing Visitas, like we have the amazing opportunity to help organize it, help sign you guys in. We all want to see your beautiful faces, and we want to welcome you to the community. So I also highly encourage you to come. One last note, one of my roommates, who I absolutely love, she's from Tennessee, she skipped her senior prom to come to Visitas. So like sometimes you got to make those really hard decisions, and no, it's a hard decision, Andrew. I see you laughing. Not a decision at all, but she had a really good time. And well, I'm sure she would have had a wonderful time at senior prom as well. It was coming here that made her realize that she definitely would be happy here. And there's a sort of certainty that I think you can't really get in any other way.
Yeah, well said. I'm sure you guys are incredibly talented, so you'll be invited to a lot of visiting weekends. But Harvard really takes a lot of pride in it. It does a whole lot of programming with our cultural groups, the Institute of Politics. I know the Institute of Politics has a home run set of fellows that you'd be able to meet, including Martha Coakley, who was Massachusetts Attorney General. We have Hagan, who was the senator for North Carolina. We have so many people who were on campus at one point. I know one year at Visitas, actually, the year that I was supposed to go, some students came and they had an informal Visitas. Matt Damon was there to encourage the students, hey, I know Boston's having a rough time right now, but I'm from here. I can assure you it's a wonderful place. You should go to Harvard. He went to Harvard before he went off and made his and became famous. So Visitas is a magical weekend. It's usually permanent for people who want to end up going. But great question. This is a follow-up question asked. Is the Harvard team to travel for Visitas? They're in travel for Visitas. Usually based on your income level, you should notice your investment letter, or when it comes to your date. If you can actually ask call the financial aid. The phone number can be found online. But yes, we do fund visitation. Yes, we do fund those students to Harvard. We don't have to Harvard. The next question was, what is the older and I'm going to answer.
I think that there's some problems with
I think something's going on with
Check this out.
I think it's better now.
Okay.
Define what you think.
I'm sorry, who's the question for?
Oh, you. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear. Hardest class I've ever taken. Let's talk about it. Honestly, the favorite class that I mentioned earlier has been one of the more difficult ones too. It's weird how those things go together because you wouldn't think that they would. I had never really done political science research before, even though I've been in the government department for 2 years, because I took mostly essay-based classes, and this was the first really research-intensive course I'd done. The professor told us at the beginning of the semester that we were going to have a weekly research project. He said that it would take us 18 to 20 hours to complete if done right every week. I thought he was exaggerating. Not really, not too much. And my first research project, I remember I did it really inefficiently and really bad because I just didn't know where to find the information I needed. I spent far too much time looking in the law school databases because I just didn't know where to go. And even after staying up all night the night before to complete it, which I don't normally do, I still had to submit it incomplete. And I was so concerned because I never had to turn in a project incomplete before. It was a new thing for me. So I went to meet with my professor the next day. I set a meeting up, and I said, I'd love to talk because I really want to take this class, but every week cannot be like this week was. This was really bad. Can you help me with research? Because I realized I really don't know how to do it properly. And he said, yeah, sure. He said, if you want to come in after the assignment is given out every week, we can meet for half an hour and we can talk about the best places to go to find this information, the best librarians to talk to. Harvard's got research assistants on payroll that are ready to help you. I just really didn't know where to find them. Otherwise, I would have done it myself. But he helped set me up with them, and then no other weekly project was as difficult as that first one. And I feel now, after going through the entire semester, that I am well-versed enough in political science research that that won't be a concern for me when signing up to take other courses. So I think it was a valuable experience in the end, even though that first night trying to complete that project, I really just wanted to cry. But it ended up being good and valuable, and I'm really glad that I took that course.
Awesome. I'm gonna actually ask you questions after you're a freshman and just made from high school to college. So what was the hardest class, and maybe what was a little bit difficult about your transition?
Sorry, who was that to?
Sorry, Alice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear the last part.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm asking you the same question. What was your hardest class, and what would you say was difficult academically transitioning from high school to college?
Okay, so I'll speak more about the second part, but the hardest class I've taken so far was CS50. I think having no background in computer science and just going to take a class that got pretty advanced in the middle was a bit challenging. But there were a lot. Wow. Hello?
I think you're good.
Okay, so but there were a lot of opportunities that were offered for guidance and help. So there were office hours every single night if you needed it. So you were never without help. But that was difficult. But I think I did learn from some very cool things from the class. So I'm glad that I got to experience it, even though now I know that I will not be concentrating in computer science. But I think that's what Harvard is all about, exploring all different fields, even ones that you have no background in, and finding out whether you like it or not. Speaking about the second question, I think the transition has been surprisingly easy because I think coming from a very large public high school in Philadelphia, it was very understaffed, so I didn't have much support from the school. But coming to Harvard, the classes are mostly, for the most part, smaller than the classes that I've been in high school. There is a proctor that lives in your dorm that's there to help you through every single thing that you experience if you need it. There is a PAF, which is a peer advising fellow that's also a student at Harvard that's older than you and that advises you on a range of things. And if you don't want to go to your proctor, you can go to your PAF. And there's also an academic advisor who advises you on school-related issues. So you have this very wonderful network of people who are just always there to help you if you need it. And I know that was not an option for me in high school. But coming here, I've just been amazed by how many resources there are to help you to transition to even as like a sophomore or an upperclassman, you have these resources available to you. So I think that yes, it could be difficult sometimes, especially being a freshman in the fall. With a lot of things changing and falling into places. But if you ever need help, there are many, many people who are here to help you, and if you reach out, they will be there for you. So that's not a concern.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So someone asked a really great question, and it's one that I wish I had hopped on a Google Hangout and asked myself. What are some classes you guys recommend for first-year students? So I'm going to be a little biased. I'm in the Ec department. I really suggest taking Ec 10. Economics 10, it's a full-year course if you decide to take a full year. In the fall semester, it focuses on microeconomics. So it is based on kind of looking at how individuals and firms make decisions. And then in the spring is macroeconomics, which kind of it's a much broader looks at large issues like employment, how it's interact. It's a wonderful class to really understand kind of how the world works in kind of the most basic terms. For people who want to do government, it'll really inform and really give you an unbelievable layer on your studies. I think it's a great compliment. And I think it almost most applies to the real world. If you've never taken economics before, it takes a little bit of intuition building. There are some really great Khan Academy talks that you guys should check out just to understand, what's the concept of the interest rate, supply and demand. It might be good to kind of like see those a couple times and get an idea of maybe what to expect. Might be something you're interested in. Might not, but it is the most or second most populated class every year, and most people stay on. I personally liked Act 10B a lot. I think if you are much more conceptual, if you like kind of more government, social studies type that kind of aspect of things, you might enjoy 10B. 10A, I hear people who are a little more quantitative, like math problems, like to think about a lot of moving parts, might be a little more inclined towards Act 10A. Andrew, what's a few freshman classes that you recommend?
Sure. Well, I'll have to put in a good word for anything in the government department. Gov 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 are 5 inter-level Gov classes. I took 2 of them my freshman year, and they're really great. Not only if you're going to concentrate in Gov, but like Gov 20 is a comparative course, probably the most reading that you'll do in any course at Harvard, honestly. No one does all of the reading on their own. They create reading groups, and everyone summarizes, and that helps it out a lot. Any amount of reading will seem light in comparison once you take Gov 20, so that might help. But you get to learn about pretty much every country in the world, their system of government, different things that have been tried. So it's a historical perspective as well as a very practical look at different societies around the world and how they've organized their systems of government. I really also like Government 40, which is an introduction to international relations. I'd never done anything like that before, but now the majority of the courses that I take are in international relations because I like that first one so much. Great theoretical knowledge, and so I'd recommend any of those inter-level Gov courses.
Awesome. Diana, to recommend?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I said, what are some courses that you recommend?
Definitely. So one thing that I suggest to pretty much every freshman is to not take just introductory classes, because the most exciting classes are usually the ones a little bit higher up in different levels. So for example, in my freshman year, I took a really great sociology class. And I certainly recommend to everyone to take at least one sociology class in their freshman year, because no matter where you're coming from, it gives you a really great perspective on other people, on your classmates, on different groups, and it really helps you think outside of the Harvard bubble, which is totally great. But in my freshman year, I took a class that was on media and popular culture. It wasn't one of the sociology classes, and because I didn't plan to study sociology, I was a little bit scared. But it turned out to be a really amazing class. I wrote a final paper on the marketing of Disney, and I got to interview people about their favorite Disney movies, incorporate this into my research. So definitely taking higher level classes. I also totally recommend language classes. I think that the language classes here have been some of the best experiences because they're small classes, they're very immersion heavy, and they're just really interesting. I took German my entire freshman year. I took French my entire sophomore year. This year I didn't take any languages besides English, but it's still good. And then next year I plan to return to taking French. And I think that the French classes that I've taken here have focused primarily on film and French cinema, and they've been really great opportunities to learn some French, make good friends, and they usually bring people from countries. Like, for example, we had kids visiting us from France and then from Germany in my freshman year to give us firsthand experiences at what it's really like to live in these countries, which was a great experience.
Awesome. Claire, why don't you please vet us some classes?
Classes. So I'm going to have to challenge what Andrew said about Gov 20 being the most reading you'll ever do, because that course is taught by the illustrious Professor Levitsky, who also teaches Gov 1295, Comparative Politics of Latin America, which I know Andrew is with me, so that is even more reading, I think. But it's really worth it, and I just like to say, oh my God, the echo. Okay, it's gone. I just like to second what Diana said already about taking really cool upper-level courses. I have a really good friend who literally took a course first semester as a freshman with 2 other students, and they became very good friends with their professor, and he wrote like a 30-page paper at the end of it and had help all along the way. So you should genuinely be taking courses that you are really interested in. The freshman seminar program has already been mentioned as something absolutely wonderful. My freshman seminar was about global health, so we compared healthcare systems across the world, and that's just the brilliance of it, really, in that if you balance your course load by having some courses which involve math and science and problem sets, and some courses that involve essays and papers, you really can't go wrong in having a very balanced and a lot of, I guess, in-depth material that you're really learning.
Awesome. And Alice, please tell us about some classes that you've taken that you recommend.
Yeah. So some of my favorite classes, I already mentioned my freshman seminar, which was a wonderful experience. Right now I'm taking the sociology course. That's about law, journalism, and crime. And so it's a very interesting combination of things. It talks about how crime is portrayed in the media and the different biases and the different theories that go into that. And it's very interesting because every class, we start out the class with looking at the front page of major publications. So he pulls up on the big screen the front page of the New York Times, the front page of USA Today, just these things that you would read anyway. And then we discuss what the layout and the style and the formatting of the front page means and what it's doing, what messages it's communicating. So that's very interesting, and I'm also writing case studies, which is something that you would do in law school, and so that's a great experience to have right now. One more thing, I like to echo what was said previously about foreign language classes. I'm currently taking Spanish. I took Spanish in high school, but I didn't take it first semester, and I realized I really missed having a foreign language class. I think the one thing that doesn't seem, I guess, very obvious is that it takes you into a different mindset when you're speaking and writing and reading a different language. It just puts you in a completely different mindset, and I think in a lot of ways it helps me reflect about different things. I was reading about a Spanish poet today, and I just felt so relaxed, and I think it's just a great way to balance your courses, to try different languages, and to also just, I guess, see the world with a different lens. And I think I really encourage everyone to take a foreign language your freshman year.
Great question. So the next upvoted one is, are there opportunities for research projects for students who stay at Harvard during the holidays? So I guess it depends on which holidays you decide to stick around for. So the way Harvard operates typically is each semester you have one break that's longer than 3 days, and then usually a federal holiday break. So for example, in the fall, we get Columbus Day off, so that's our 3-day weekend. Then we get a few days for Thanksgiving. Then we have J-term. You're probably thinking, that's not much break, oh my God. But we have J-term, which is over a month. Depending on when your final exams end, if you have early exams, you could be not having classes until the next semester for a month and a half to a month and 3 weeks. And the idea is they want you to be able to go home wherever you're from, travel if you need be, if you need to work, if you have responsibilities. They want to give you adequate time, and also to decompress. They know that you worked hard the last semester, so they have you do your finals, go back and celebrate whatever holidays or not celebrate, and have some really great time to yourself and come back refreshed for next semester. And then you'll come back, and again, our 2 breaks are, I believe, President's Day is kind of that one day off and that Monday, and then we have spring break, which is right before Housing Day. It's usually the 3rd week in March, and that is an entire week. Now, as you asked, research projects for Harvard to stay during the holidays. Over J-term, I'm not sure how much research is to be had. I do know there are some abroad programs. Typically, our programming begins in January. Things are pretty hands-off in December, just because I believe our final exams end around the 15th or the 17th, and they really don't like to plan around New Year's and Christmas. It kind of makes sense. But starting in January, there's opportunities to go abroad. I know people who did kind of very small research trips regarding public health. There are a lot of great opportunities to get involved. We also have winter session that you can come back to campus early for about a week or so. And there are small little breakout sessions, seminars, scenarios that focus on different projects. So I think maybe one was like learning sign language. Another one that I almost did was it focused on, developing your narrative and kind of becoming secure in the activities that you've done and things you want to go forward. So I guess the key word to take away our winter session, it's also on a professor-to-professor break. And, it really all depends on the class. I know one of my blockmates, one of the first people I chose to live with, they are doing a trip in spring break, and she's a social anthropology major. So again, depends on the class you're in. So ask around and get creative, and you can have some fun on your time. Let me see. I'm just trying to check the time here. I want to make sure everyone on the conference has a chance to eat. It's been a long day for everybody. So we'll take a couple more questions. How about this? I will allow you guys in the next minute to upvote the question that you want most. We'll answer that question. All remaining questions, you can email it to us. We'd love to answer them. And then I'll wrap up with a few words and maybe ask one more question for the group that I've kind of got in my back pocket.
Michael?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt, guys. I have a meeting that's happening in 5 minutes. So I will sign off if that's all right.
Yes, thank you so much, Claire. You've been amazing. I would, give them a virtual round of applause for Claire.
Guys, that's too much. But I really had a wonderful time talking to all of you, and you should definitely contact HCC, the Harvard College Connection, if you have any questions at all. We're always open to answer. And I think, can someone help me out with what our email is? Is it Harvard Connection?
Yes, it's Harvard Connection. So it's Harvard Connection at g.harvard.edu.
Okay, awesome. So I will be heading off then. It was really nice talking to all of you, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of the chat. Thanks, guys.
Let's go with... Okay, how possible is it to work on research with a professor during your school year? Very possible. This is going to sound pretty outlandish, but there are actually more research positions and internships than there are students, and that's really not a lie. And you can start doing high-level, highbrow research day one. So to give you an example, one of my freshman roommates who was really interested in physics and philosophy, and he really wanted to do research, and he had never done research before at his high school. He was actually a debater. And he was able to do research through his freshman seminar, although he was actually offered deals through other classes as well. But he worked on a proton accelerator over at MIT, whatever that means. I'm not a science guy. But you can put it together. It's been pretty awesome. But he was able to do research his freshman year from day one. Another one of my, and that's not just science research either, guys. One of my roommates was really invested in education and government. He was able to do a lot of research on behalf of his professor starting his freshman fall, and actually, even though he didn't take a class with that professor in the spring, kind of looped and continued his research going forward. So research is whenever you're ready for it. You may have to interview. Sometimes they ask for a little bit of previous lab experience, but more often than not, they don't. They're just looking for someone who is really invested in the material and just kind of wants to do it. So before I sign everybody off, I'm going to ask a question to the group. What was one of the biggest things you were afraid of in coming into Harvard, and how did you deal with that? So I'll start. I was really afraid that I wasn't going to match up with the other students here. I was afraid that maybe I was the admissions mistake, that I wouldn't be able to do the work here. And I would say that's not the case. First and foremost, I think a lot of times people have the impression that Harvard is competitive. I would say actually it's not. People are really competitive with themselves, but rarely with others. It's a very cooperative environment. I've had times where I've been working on problem sets and had no idea how to do it, but noticed someone in the library was working on it as well, kind of mustered some courage to go up and say, are you getting this? Because I'm not. And they actually were able to help me out. They dropped whatever they were doing, and that's happened a lot. People are really nice here. I remember one of my favorite moments here at Harvard is convocation. It's the welcoming of the freshman class. I think everyone has these jitters, these guards up, these nerves, because they don't want to look stupid or say something dumb or whatever. And so everyone's kind of got their A game going on. And one of our deans, Michael Smith, he looked out into the crowd and said, if I'm going to leave you with anything, it's stop trying to get in. It's not a competition. It's not who's the best, who's going to be the next Nobel laureate, who deserves to be here. You all do. Going forward, it's about what you want to learn about, the impact and impression that you want to leave on the world. And you can't do that by yourself. You have to do it with the people to the left and the right of you. So use them as a resource. And when they ask for help, respond. And it really set the tone, and I would say that's very indicative of the Harvard experience. It's cooperative. It's not cutthroat. So, Andrew, why don't you tell me what you were afraid of coming in a freshman year?
Kind of the same thing, honestly. So we got a little bit of echo. Kind of the same thing. I was very concerned about fitting in and keeping up with the work. I've lived in the same small town in North Carolina since I was born, and never anywhere else. So it was a very different transition for me coming here. I was worried that coming from Southern public school, people would look down on me if they'd been to more elite high schools. And I remember arriving, I want to talk a lot about my proctor. My proctor is one of my favorite people here, my freshman proctor, which is the graduate student RA that lives in the dorm with you. And on move-in day, I walked up and she had her clipboard where she was checking names. And I said, hi, I'm Andrew Pardue. And she dropped her clipboard and she picked me up in a bear hug. And she said, you're from Nash County, North Carolina. I said, yes, I am. How could you possibly know where that is? And she said, my mom went to the same high school that you did. She was class of 1980. And she said, my family still lives there, aunts and cousins. We go back every Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm very familiar with the area, and I think that's why they placed you in my dorm, in my entryway. So that was very exciting. I had a bit of a difficult start at Harvard, honestly, because on my third day, we had a death in my family, and I had to fly home for the funeral proceedings. I missed all of shopping week. I flew back in on Sunday night following shopping week, and the next day was when you're supposed to turn in your study cards of what classes you're going to take. I visited, I think, maybe 3 classes on the one day that I was here. And I went to my proctor, and I was so stressed out. I said, Catherine, I don't know what classes I'm going to take. I feel like I'm already behind, and it's the second week here. I just need to transfer. I can't do this. I can't stay here. It's too much. And she sat down with me, and she helped me choose all of my courses for my first semester, things that she knew I was going to need as far as requirements, and really gave me a cup of tea, calmed me down, and said, look, just stick with it another month, and then come back and we'll talk, and you see how you feel. And of course, by the time another week had passed, I was absolutely in love with the place. So yeah, the people that are here that are going to be in your life are going to do their best to make you feel comfortable. And so that really shouldn't be something that you're going to worry about, because they do look out for you, absolutely.
I never knew that. So thank you for sharing. Diana Beth?
So, first of all, thank you, Carla, for saying that my thing that I read, I gave a speech recently on Monday. It was called the Star-Spangled Banner, and it was on the Harvard Fuerza Latina page. You guys should go look at it. I was on the executive board of Fuerza Latina, which is one of the Latino organizations. And actually, I think what I was scared of coming to Harvard was also, like Andrew, leaving home. I'm an only child. I am really, really, really close to my parents. I have lived in the same zip code my entire life. I live in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. I am used to being with Latinos and speaking Spanish and being with my family. And I was scared that if I left home, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. And I would miss my family so much that would stop me from being able to take advantage of all the amazing things that I knew would be at Harvard waiting for me. And I think that the greatest thing I could have done coming to Harvard was join the Latino community. And I joined at the activities fair. When I came to Visitas, they have a Latino barbecue, and it was amazing. And then in the beginning of freshman year, there was an activities fair, and I hear a bunch of people playing bachata, playing salsa music, eating empanadas, and shouting at me like, "Oh, I don't know if this. Oh, it didn't freeze. Okay, like shouting at me like, "Oh, you've come, join our community," and it was the beginning of me joining this amazing family that never could replace my parents, of course, or my great-grandmother or my grandmother, but it was the home away from home that I really, really needed. And it gave me a place to speak Spanish or speak Spanglish, and it gave me a place to listen to the music I wanted to, and it gave me a place to laugh and to cry and to talk about what was on my mind at that moment that maybe I couldn't talk about with my roommates. And I think that really joining the cultural communities on campus, if you have an opportunity to do so, because this community has literally done so much for me. And I work for the minority recruitment program as a subset of the admissions office, and so I'm trying to do the same for you guys. And so if any of you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me. Find me. My name is sort of weird, but you can find it online. Just email me any questions. I'd love to talk about the Latino community.
Thank you so much. And that was, again, really, really heartfelt. And it's really indicative of the stories here. Off screen, she said, only child, lived in the same zip code, was kind of doing some snaps. There are a lot of students who come, from all different backgrounds, but, I would say, I know, to give you some perspective, 20% of students here at Harvard are on full financial aid. And full financial aid is anything under $65,000 of a household income. So you're definitely not alone if you're in that category. Many of us are. So finally, we'll wrap up with Alice, and then we'll kind of say our goodbyes. So Alice, what were some things you were afraid of coming into Harvard?
Okay, so Michael, thank you for the wonderful question. Andrew and Diana Speth, thank you for this very moving response. I think you guys basically covered whatever I was going to say. You said it all. I think coming to Harvard, one of the things that I was concerned about was balancing. I think that's a question I addressed earlier. I don't know if a lot of you feel this way, but after 4 years of high school, I feel like I was just catching my breath from 4 years of very stressful and intense work and high school experience. So I was worried that I was just going to repeat that for college and just get into this pattern of being overcommitted, being stressed, and I think that's a problem that a lot of us deal with as freshmen and as upperclassmen. But coming here, I've actually found people who are able to kind of anchor me and help me balance my life more. I think Andrew mentioned his proctor, and Diana Smith mentioned her Latina community, which is just really great. I think here you'll find people who will be there for you in whatever way that you need. And my suite mates, my roommates, have been just wonderful. Sometimes I get stressed, and they're just like they notice things, and they're like, "Are you okay? Let's talk." Sometimes I stay in the library for too late, and they'll just check up on me and text me and call me and say, "Hey, are you gonna come back to our suite soon? We miss you. Come back." And that's just something I never had before because I also grew up as an only child, and so just having suite mates and roommates that you're very close to, or just having a community in any sort of way, they become your second family. I'm very amazed by the fact that I feel like I have a second family and it's only been one semester. But I think that's very true. You'll find your family here, whatever that means. So it's been great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, Diana Speth. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Claire, who left us. And thank you, Victoria, who actually organized this Google Hangout. I'll speak for myself. I'd love to have more. So before I let you all go, just know that Harvard's a fun place. It's a welcoming place. We want you to join kind of the Harvard family and, you know, continue to ask questions. Please come to visit Taz. If you're already decided, please think about doing a pre-orientation program. We don't have enough time to talk about it now. Look into it. Send us questions if you have any. But again, those are pre-orientation programs. And come to Harvard if it's not too much to ask. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. I hope you guys kill it at graduation. And oh yeah, if you do come to visit us and you see one of us, pull us over. We'd love to talk.
Please say
to you.
hi.
Yes, please say hi. We'd love to match, you know, the questions to the faces and the names. But yeah, again, thank you so much. We're signing off, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Congratulations.